I need to choose one rabbi, one direction, just like one husband or one wife, and identify with that rabbi, with that direction. Identification means committing, going with one direction over the others. This video was made possible through the kind support of my sponsors over at Patreon. Patreon is a great way to help independent creators like myself produce original content. If you'd like to get more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much. Today is Yud Aleph Shvat, the 11th day of Shvat. And anyone who's a little bit familiar with the world of Chabad knows that this is the day in which 74 years ago, the Rebbe took office and became the 7th Lubavitcher Rebbe after a year with no Rebbe. The year before that, 75 years ago, on the 10th day of Shvat was when the previous Rebbe, the 6th Rebbe, passed away, and then there was a year's absence in which the Chassidim were trying to convince the Rebbe, doing everything in their power to get him to be the Rebbe, and finally he agreed. And when the Yortzeit ended, he began singing a certain nigun, a certain Hassidic tune, which basically signaled that he was about to say ma'amar, meaning he was about to become the Rebbe. So this is a good time, whether you're a Chabadnik or you're not, to discuss the topic of choosing a rabbi and becoming connected to a rabbi. This is called hitkashrut. Hitkashrut is bonding with a particular rabbi, and by extension, this also refers to choosing a spiritual path within the larger tapestry of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism. Judaism is very wide, very varied, very colorful. There are 70 facets to the Torah. There are many, many different soul roots. There are many different rabbis and branches and streams and directions, and part of it has to do with the different exiles we've been to. There's Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, but within those very large groups, there's very different kinds of denominations and directions, and each one has their own style, their own energy, their own Torah. And many people today who didn't grow up with a very particular tradition, or who grew up with a certain tradition but find that it's not enough for them, or it doesn't suit their soul root, then they go and they start being on the lookout, and they start searching. And then there's a big confusion that a lot of people are facing. Should I choose one direction, one Rebbe or one rabbi, and sort of selflessly go with it and accept even what I don't particularly like or I don't particularly connect to in that branch or in that denomination of Judaism? Or maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just be wandering around and collecting nectar from different flowers like a bee. And then maybe I'll concoct my own honey from this cocktail of nectars. And regarding this particular topic, Rav Ginsburg, quite a few years ago, wrote a very, very important Hassidic essay. Like all of his essays that he wrote himself, they're all in these kind of books. The brownish books, there are 6 of them. They're very dense, they're very cryptic almost. If you don't know how to read them, you have to really unpack them, unfold them to understand what they're saying. But we're going to do this to this essay. The Hebrew title of the essay is Ptichut Hizdahut Hitkalilut, which in English means openness, identification, inter-inclusion. So these are 3 stages, and now we're going to go over them. And basically he's trying to pave a path for all the searchers who are confused. And part of them says they need to commit to one direction, and part of them says no, but I connect, I identify, I find myself in so many different others. How can I narrow myself to one direction. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should. What are the benefits, what are the pros and cons? So he recognized that this is a major dilemma in our generation. Not only did he recognize it, but he underwent the same thing himself. He is a Baal Tshuva, studied early on when he was early teens, like 14, 15, he had his first Jewish spiritual awakening, but he didn't initially or immediately go to Chabad. It took a while. He wondered about, and he was connected to several different rabbis before committing to Chabad. And to this day, he's unusual in some, and more than one way, among the, let's say, the typical Chabad rabbis, if you can say such a thing. Everyone's different, but there are some idiosyncrasies or things that are different about him, and it has to do with the fact that he tasted, and more than tasted, other rabbis in other directions. So we want to go now into these three stages, right? Openness, identification, inter-inclusion. One final introduction before we dive in is that the underlying structure or model for these three new concepts that he coined, but he didn't coin them, but he sort of put them together into one three-stage process, is that it's based on a far more familiar trio of concepts coming from the Baal Shem Tov, which is Hachna'a, Havdalah, Hamtaka, or submission, separation, and sweetening. So that's far older and more well-known, that the Baal Shem Tov said that every spiritual process, every profound process, has to go through first the stage of submission, which is basically acknowledging that you're not perfect, that you have something to learn, and you're open to change. And that's the submission stage. And then once you submit, you can start identifying within yourself, separate within yourself the good and the bad, the high and the low, the godly or the animal sides, whatever it is that's within you, which you couldn't do before, because before you submit, you may identify with the lower part of you. So once you're able to have this sense of submission in your soul, you can start separating and going along with the higher and pushing away the lower. And then you can reach the final third stage, which is called sweetening. Sweetening is when even the parts of you that you pushed away in the first two stages, you're somehow able to integrate them, and you reach some sort of full circle, and there's this inner peace that you reach, and a sense of closure that you reach. And of course that leads to another submission, separation, sweetening, because life is a constant spiral, and we're constantly evolving. But these three stages are very important. So this will be a good class to understand those stages, but especially to understand the new concepts that we want to understand, which again are openness, identification, inter-inclusion. So we'll start with the openness. So the openness goes like this. If you're not born into a particular tradition, or as we said before, it's unsuitable for you, and you can't find yourself in it, then you have to go on a search. And in order to really go on the search, you have to be very open. So the openness is basically giving room to one's desire to taste different directions and different rabbis. It's a very good thing. And some people are unnecessarily closed up, and they're locked, and they're not open to hearing new ideas and new directions of thinking, directions of praying, directions of feeling, directions of learning. And so you need openness. Openness is a very good thing. But the thing is, there are two kinds of being open, two ways of being open. And then the metaphor that he uses throughout this essay is of a girl dating, looking to get married. Why a girl? You could do the same thing for a boy. The reason he's doing it is that traditionally, when you think about a Rebbe and the Chassid, then the Rebbe is the male figure, because the Rebbe is the mashpia, the teacher, the bestower, the giver. He's giving off the wisdom, and the Chassid is the mekabel, the receiver, the recipient, and that's a female. This is considered a male-female pair. So the Rebbe is like male, and then the Chassidim are like his wives, so to speak. So he uses the metaphor of a girl dating, but really you can, especially today, you can also be a man dating, it doesn't matter. And so he says that when this girl or this guy is dating, they have to be very focused from the very start that they're looking to find a husband, right? If you're dating for fun, you're wasting a lot of people's time. The other people's time and your own time, and you're misleading them, you're misleading yourself, and there's something improper, immodest about this approach. And so you're not supposed to play with people's feelings or your own. And in fact, you're not really open, because you're dating people, but since you're not really ready or willing, prepared to commit, you're tasting them or checking them or sampling them in a very superficial way, because you're not asking the deep questions. Is this the person that I want to marry, that I want to live my whole life with? If you open that question, you start getting to know people in a much deeper way. If you're just saying, well, look, let's see if this is fun for the next few days, weeks, months, whatever it is. So opening the long-term questions opens up the really getting to know the other person. So it's the same with tasting and learning and discovering different rabbis and different branches in Judaism. It has to come from a place that you're looking for the one direction that touches you more profoundly than others, and that you want to commit to it in the sense of really shaping your inner world, your inner life, according to the mold, the structure, the tradition of that particular branch. So this is the good openness. Openness in the sense that I'm looking for, why? Because if I'm just sampling, or I'm just, like I said, collecting nectar from different flowers, then ultimately I am my own Rebbe. I'm the one in charge. And I never come out of my own little circle. I'm the one who's saying, okay, from this rabbi I'm going to take these elements and I'm going to push away the other elements. And from that rabbi I'm going to take this element, but that element I'm not going to take because it doesn't appeal to me. And then you're left in the realm of what appeals to you right now. You're not breaking out of that circle into a circle that will surprise you, that will enrich you. So this is the first distinction to be made. The negative openness is that and he uses the verse that was said in referring to Cain, lapetach chatat rovetz. Lapetach, the sin is lurking at the opening of your door. So the opening has to do with being open. So the negative openness is lapetach chatat rovetz. There's a sin here, is the sin of being my own master, my own Rebbe. And if I don't have this sense of some sort of nullification to something higher than me, I don't have this submission, right? This whole stage of openness has to do with submission. It has to be done from a certain sense of submission, that I want to find the right teacher, the right Torah that I can submit to, because only then will it surprise me and enhance my world, because it'll challenge me to accept some things that I don't identify with. If I would be sampling everyone, then the moment I would reach a stage that the teacher is telling me something I don't like, I said, okay, that's one of the things I'm not going to take from them. It's not a package deal. I'm just taking some elements. But the whole thing is that really going with one direction in Judaism means that it is a package deal a little bit. You have to accept some things that you don't like, and only later on will you figure out how it goes. By the way, the whole thing also applies to Judaism in general. Today people have this experience. They're not just sampling directions within Judaism, they're sampling religions. And then they're saying, well, Judaism has some nice things, and Buddhism has some nice things, and Christianity has this element, and whatever it is. And shamanism, every place, everywhere you go, you find something. But the whole idea of Judaism is that you can't differentiate the gist or some ideas from the practicality of it. It's one organism, you can't differentiate. So the same goes on a miniature level with a particular interpretation or path within Judaism. Now, when he talks about the negative kind of openness, he uses a very, very beautiful metaphor, which is a really amazing innovation. It's taking a Kabbalistic term that's very classic, very well known, and doing an amazing twist on it. There is a Kabbalistic notion which talks about the kings of chaos. the ancient kings of chaos. The foundation for this is in Parashat Vayishlach. This is when Yaakov is about to confront Esav, and he sends his emissaries, and then they confront, and then they make peace, and then they part ways again. And then we're bidding our farewell to Esau, and then we have a list of all the many different kings that are going to come out of his lineage. And then all of a sudden there's a very mysterious list of 8 kings, and the first 7 are called the kings of chaos. And it is said of them that these are the kings that ruled in Edom, the kingdom of Esau, before there was ever a king in Israel. Now, who is even thinking about a king in Israel? This is Bereshit. This is so far away in the future. But it says before Israel had a king, there was these 8 kings. And there's a difference between the 7 kings and the last 8th one. The 7 kings, each one of them, it is said of them, they have a name, they have a different kingdom, but the one thing they have in common is that we're told that each one of them vayimloch, and then he did a few things, and then vayamot. He ruled and he died. He ruled and he died. He ruled and he died. The 8th one is different. It says vayimloch, he ruled, but it doesn't say he died. Like he never died. And the idea is that the 7 kings are like the 7 energies or 7 spiritual directions, but each one of them wanted to rule completely on its own in a kind of an aggressive way. And each one said, Ana imloch, I'm going to be the sole king. And it had a lot of lights, a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, a lot of visions, but they didn't have a sense for the vessel. It was only lights and no vessels. They didn't care about their kingdom, about their peoples. They just had a vision, and they tried to force it onto reality. And when you have a lot of lights and no vessels, or very weak vessels, you have what is called the breaking of the vessels. You have a lot of this energy, and then you put it into a little vessel you try to force it on your people and your nation, and it breaks. So the 8th king is different. He doesn't die. His vessels don't break. And what was the difference between him and the 7 first kings? Is that there's a detail there, another detail. Not only does he not die, but we're also told that he had a wife, and we're given the wife's name. And when you have a female name in the Bible, it's a rare event, because the Bible is patrilineal. It has all the lineages that are going from father to son, father to son. So you have a lot of male names in the Bible. But if you have a female name, it's an occasion. It's, something's happening here. So she must have been a very significant woman. So it doesn't mean, by the way, the other ones weren't married. Maybe they had harems full of women, but it didn't have what we call the significant other. And apparently the 8th one had a significant other, and we're given her name. Her name is Meheitavel, Bat Matred, Bat Mei Zahav. It's a beautiful name. So the idea goes that because he had a significant relationship with his wife, then that means that she was like his vessel. She taught him to treat seriously the vessels. He extended that to listening to his people, his nation. He didn't break the vessel. He integrated the light into the vessel. It starts with having a good dialogue with your wife. And then he could convey the light of his vision to his people. He wasn't like a dictator. And then he didn't break. His kingdom lived on. So he is called the beginning of the world of tikkun, of rectification, whereas the first 7 kings were the kings of the world of chaos, of tohu. Tohu is a lot of lights, no vessels, it breaks. And tikkun is when you're able to take the lights and put them into the vessels. So far, it's a very ancient, very classical Kabbalistic idea that describes this world of tohu. And we can liken it. Now, before we liken it, I'll go to his Chiddush, Rav Ginsburg's Chiddush. He says, this is the way the world of chaos used to be. It was a male-dominated world, and that it was a world of ideologies, very male ideologies. Everyone had their utopia, their vision, and they tried to force it on reality, and then it would break, and then a new king would rise, and so on. Today, the world has changed. And the world is still chaotic. Things are not working well, but it totally flipped. Instead of, so he doesn't say it in so many words, but it says something very similar. Instead of 7 kings, now we have 7 queens. Now it's all feminine, meaning now everyone is all vessels and no lights. What do we mean? So this now comes my simpler metaphor for his metaphor. So the masculine world of chaos, I liken it to a bachelor's apartment. You have an apartment with a lot of bachelors living there. They don't understand women, and each one likes talking, but no one likes listening. Right? This is, I shall rule. I'm the sole ruler. I have the whole truth. And you think you have the whole truth, but you're wrong. I'm right. Everyone thinks they're right, and then they're arguing over each other. Everyone's shouting. Nobody's listening, and of course they don't get married because when they go on dates, they don't listen. They just talk, like a typical bachelor, male bachelor. So this is the bachelor's apartment. Everyone's a mashpia. Everyone's a teacher, a giver, a speaker, a knower, but no one's listening. No one is a vessel to receive, to listen, to hear. So they're arguing, shouting at one another. This is the classical, postmodern, the modern world was still like this, a world of masculine chaos. What is the feminine chaos? The new one, that's the postmodern world. This is a bachelorette's apartment. In the bachelorette's apartment, everyone's listening. Everyone's open. You do a circle, everyone's listening to you and open to you and want to hear you, but then you have a feeling at some point that there's no truth, because everyone has their own truth. Everyone is valid, everyone is validated. And forget now the bachelorette's apartment, think about the culture of today. The culture of today, the pluralistic, relativistic culture, the postmodern culture. Everyone has their narrative, everyone has their point of view. We need to be not just tolerant, which is a good thing. We need to be pluralistic, which is not so much a good thing because it says there's no truth. It's relativistic. This is a very feminine world. But the problem is that the bachelorette's apartment may not be a place where people shout or people try to coerce one another or to force down their own truth on the others. It's a very liberal world, it's a very open world, it's a very kind world. But people don't get married. They don't commit to any one truth. There's no mashpia, there's no one truth. So he uses this example to talk about what happened in the world. The classical world was very masculine. The modern world was the beginning of being more liberal and so on, but still had people that had a sense of truth. Once postmodernism, which goes along with the New Age spiritual movements, and also a lot of Chassidut, but Chassidut in a way that everyone is tasting nectar, like I said, or sampling. That's a very feminine world. Everyone is listening and open, but it's the negative kind of openness. It's the openness in which I'm open to everyone, but I'm not committing to anyone. I'm listening, this has truth, that has truth, this has truth, everything I can learn from them, but I don't marry. And then, so the submission here, which is coming out of the openness, and now we're going into the second stage, is I need to choose one rabbi, one direction, just like one husband or one wife, and identify with that rabbi, with that direction. Identification, that's the second stage. Identification means committing, going with one direction over the others. Just like getting married. This is now the woman who says, now I want to get married, or the man, I want to get married. And then you realize, and now this is hard. People today, they have FOMO, right? FOMO is fear of missing out. But there was the other date, there was the other girl I dated, the other guy I dated, and they were also nice. And when you're open to everyone, then each date you're saying, well, I can find some very good, some very interesting things about this guy. So, like the typical classical man, the bachelor wouldn't find maybe anyone because he thinks he doesn't listen to anyone. But the girl, the really open girl, or the feminine chaos, would be able to marry anyone, all of them, because they can find something about everyone. Today, both men and women have both states, right? If you're not listening, you're not finding anyone. If you're listening to everyone, but you don't know what you're doing or what you're looking for, and you're not realizing that you need to commit and you have to find the one person that chimes in with your soul root, then you're not going anywhere. So the second stage, the identification, is yes, you need to choose a direction. You need to choose one direction. Why? Because if you're only sampling the nectar, or dipping your toes in a different, river here and stream there and well there, you're not diving into any one of them. You're not going deeper. You don't experience the depth of any direction. You may say, I love Breslov, and I love Chabad, and I love the Litvish, and I love the Sephardic Kabbalistic world, or I love the Sephardic non-Kabbalistic world. And you can, you're right. No one of them is superior to the other. They're all manifestation of God's infinite wisdom, infinite truth, and the Torah's 70 facets. But you yourself are committing a kind of what Elijah the prophet rebuked the people for serving both Hashem and the Baal. He said, until when will you skip between the two paths? You have to choose. Either it's Hashem or it's the Baal. So this is a subtle version of that within Hashem's world. It's not Baal. It's all kosher rabbis. But you're sinning in a subtle way in the same jumping between the path. So if you jump between one path and the other path, you're not going deep down either path. So this is the identification level. And he says that it's very frightening, and it seems to be that it narrows you down. But just like getting married, so he gives an example of like a girl saying, my career is more important than, or putting career before family, and then you postpone the time you get married, and then sometimes you don't get married because of this. But we can also say today, it's people maybe wanting to have multiple partners, and you think you get the best of all worlds, but you're not getting anything. You're still stuck within yourself. So the truth is that if you are willing to narrow yourself and commit and take upon you the yoke of commandments, that's in relation to Judaism in general, and the yoke of a particular set of minhagim, of customs and style of learning and all this, if you don't take upon yourself this yoke, then you're not fully realizing the potential of any of these Torahs and your own potential to grow within that particular branch. And if you do go with this, you'll find you'll be challenged, and you'll need to stick to this one path and go deeper and deeper and down that rabbit hole, but you'll discover mysteries and levels and layers, and you'll grow in a way that you cannot grow if you're just wandering around on the surface. Because now you took one well and then you start climbing down that well or climbing up that ladder, whatever it is you want to imagine this doing. And more than that, there's an expression that says that the goal of love, or the extension of love, is when you start loving what your beloved loves. Tachlit ha'ava le'ehov ma she'ahuv ohev. The ultimate purpose, or the one of the end goals of love, is that you love the other person so much, you start looking at the world through their eyes, and you start loving what they love themselves. So if you commit to a certain rabbi, and that rabbi loves certain customs, and certain nigunim, and certain torot, and you, even if you don't love them so much yourself, but you start loving what they love because you love them so much. So then that's a very good example of what happens when you're challenged to go beyond what you initially connected to. You don't love these particular details or this particular nigun or this particular custom, but you love the rabbi. You're connected to the rabbi and he loves them. So you're forced into looking more deeply at those elements that you didn't love. And then you discover their beauty and their depth and their wisdom, and all of a sudden you grew, you evolved. And it wouldn't have happened if you didn't have this kind of submission stage before. So this stage, which is called the identification stage, goes along with the Baal Shem Tov's term separation. Why? Because you focus on one rabbi, one branch, and you separate yourself, you let go of all the others. Now for many people, this is where it ends. But in this ma'amar, in this whole chidush, and now we're getting to the main thing, it's not the end. There's a third stage. And for many, many Hasidim, they would find it very surprising that there is a third stage. Because they're saying, I found the Rebbe, I found my rabbi. So for many people, it's the Lubavitcher Rebbe. For many people, it's the Rabbi Nachman. For many people, it's Rav Kook. It's probably the biggest, three biggest. But there are more, it's Sephardic world especially. And that's it. And many of them, if not most of them, would feel that regardless of the fact there are many, many wonderful Jews, very wise Jews, very deep Jews, who think otherwise, my Rebbe is really the end all and be all, how do you say it? Of Judaism today, right? He really has it all. And maybe I just wait for everyone to realize it, but I realized it, and I don't have to go anywhere, because I found the master of our generation. But there is a third stage. And the third stage is hitkalelut, or inter-inclusion. What does that mean? So hitkalelut means two things, basically. The first is that it has to do with the word klulot, which is marriage. So that's just a continuation of the previous stage. The once you identify with this rabbi or this direction, you're so wedded to it, you're so connected to it, it's like a wedding. It's like you're unified with it, and it becomes part of you. You can't imagine yourself otherwise. This is just the peak or the pinnacle of the second stage. But the other meaning is the more important meaning that has to do with really the third stage itself. Is Hitkalelut, inter-inclusion, means that now that I have my direction, my path, I can go back to sampling from the other directions. I can now say, now that so it's talking about me, my 2 feet are planted in the world of Chabad, and I'm not confused. I don't have 2 rabbis, I don't have 3 rabbis, I have 1 rabbi, I have 1 Rebbe. But now I can start enjoying Rebbe Nachman in a way that I couldn't before. Now I can see that as amazing as my Rebbe is, he's not the be-all and end-all of everything. There are, just even in the family of the Baal Shem Tov, so many different branches, and each one has a flavor, has a taste, has a spark of the Baal Shem Tov's original vision. And of course, I can extend beyond Chassidut, and I can see also the Litvish world, the Sephardic world, which has its own sub-branches. And really, it's an amazing mosaic and tapestry. And you know, the word mosaic, it's beautiful in English because it's mosaika, right, which is psefas in Hebrew, but it also comes to the word Moses. So mosaic is something that has to do with Moses. So the whole of Judaism is one big mosaic that it all comes from Moses. It's the Moses mosaic. So it's all part of the Torah. And I'm not going back to my bachelor days or my searching days or my open days, because I really found and I committed, and I'm still committed. But now that I'm committed, I can start go back to wondering. And it's not just that I can now read occasionally a Rav Kook Torah, or Rebbe Nachman Torah, or a Berditchever Torah, or a Vilna Gaon Torah, whatever it is I can and I should, and they complement and they add, and I get, and it becomes richer, my understanding of Judaism. It's not just that. Now, because I went so further down my well, my path, my direction, it's almost as if I can hear people digging their way in parallel wells. I can appreciate the depth of other directions in a way that I couldn't before. If I was just skimming the surface, wandering the surface and dipping into each well, then I couldn't feel the depth of any of them. Now I'm deepening only into one. But then I realized, so if Chabad is so deep, because I'm years into it now, and I learned all these ma'amarim and all these, that must mean, and I can even hear it, that there's an equivalent depth in Rebbe Nachman of Breslov. I'm not there, but I can, because they're all those Breslover guys, they're also years into this. And they must find shade within shades and subtleties and nuances that I just like I found in Chabad. And then if I even maybe go and learn a Rebbe Nachman Torah, I can maybe even find that shade because of my own depth work in my own path. So going deeper in your own path enables you to do like a hitkalelut, an inter-inclusion of receiving once again from other directions. And it's far, far more advanced than if I would have remained in the openness stage and just would hop from one rabbi to the other rabbi and not really commit to any one of them. I would experience all of them superficially. Now I get to experience, in a way, all of them. One in depth and the other not superficially. I can get true samples of them and integrate it into my own, the main branch that I'm focusing on, that I'm going with. For someone who's at the middle stage, the identification stage, they actually find it very hard, and in fact they shouldn't, go to visit other rabbis. I recently heard a story about a Chabadnik guy, quite famous here in Israel. He's doing a lot of events, a lot of stuff, and he's connecting a lot of people to Chabad. And he took a group of artists and singers and a group of interesting people to Ukraine to go to Hassidic. Hassidic is the resting place of the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad. But those artists, you know the artists, they're like Rabbi Nachman also. They don't, he took them, but they insisted they also go to Uman. And so he humored them, and he went with them to Uman, but he didn't enter the tziyun. He didn't enter the resting place of Rabbi Nachman. He couldn't. Why? He felt it was pgam b'hitkashrut. It was like it would create a flaw in his connection to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. A bit like cheating. A bit like infidelity. It would be a kind of spiritual infidelity. But, and he was right. If he is, and everyone should, everyone knows this about themselves. You can't force this on anyone or tell, but you should know, if you're still in the identification stage, which is also the separation stage, then you're right. Don't go into Rabbi Nachman's tziyun. And maybe even don't learn Breslev. It'll confuse you. It'll be, if you feel that it's like a kind of infidelity, then maybe it is. It must be a kind of infidelity. However, once you're safe enough or based enough in the identification stage and you are willing to proceed to the inter-inclusion stage, it becomes okay. And you can go. And just so you understand, Rabbi Nachman said that going to too many rabbis would ultimately damage your monotheistic faith. Those rabbis would the fact that there's a multiplicity of them, and you connect every day to a different rabbi, it could take away. If you want to commit to one God, you need to commit to one rabbi. It's all that far did Rabbi Nachman take the idea of identification with one direction, one rabbi. And so I gave a Chabad example of this Chabadnik who couldn't go into Rabbi Nachman's tziyun, and Rabbi Nachman himself said the same thing, and his followers must feel the same thing. They wouldn't go to Hajj, they wouldn't go to 770. And if they are in the separation or identification stage, they're absolutely right. But the biggest importance of this ma'amal is that there is also the inter-inclusion stage. And then you can be the chassid of the Rebbe, but you can go to Uman, or you can open the Likutei Moharan and learn it. Now, of course, the using the metaphor of the girl who's dating and then getting married, you can't carry it on to the third stage just like you did the other stages, because it doesn't mean that, okay, so you're married, but now you can occasionally date another man. No. What it does mean is that is more interesting, is that if you feel that marrying one person, you need to give up on all the other men or women that you left behind, you should know that once you really deepen into your relationship with your spouse, you will find within your spouse elements of all the other women/men in the world. So if you're a man, you'll find she'll be like Eve. Eve is the mother of all living beings, all women. All women are included in your wife. All men are included in your husband. And you can find shades of them. It's very subtle, it's very refined, but you'll find it. And then in a way, it'll address that part of you that was lost dating all these different people. So actually the same would apply to the spiritual understanding, that you would have, you would find remnants or sparks of the other Chassidut, of the other branches within your path. But also, it's okay, because it's not marriage and it's not really infidelity. You can also study and learn and integrate from all the other directions. He ends this amal by saying that now that we are returning to Eretz Israel, and returning to Eretz Israel means that the power of the Adamah, of the land, is being restored. We were uprooted, we were groundless. And so along with the sense of being grounded, of having an Adamah, another thing that's rekindled is our dimyon, imagination, the faculty of imagination. The faculty of imagination sort of decayed or withered in exile, because when you don't have an Adamah, you don't have enough of dimyon. Everything is too theoretical and abstract. You don't exercise your faculty of the imagination. So it comes to life, this kind of profound images and the power of images and the temptation of images. And you need to rectify those, your whole world of imagery. So one of the imaginations that you have is that you want to sort of eat up the entire world, or you want to experience all different rabbis and spiritual paths. So the temptation to the negative kind of openness has become stronger than ever before. And this is not just true of Jews living in Eretz Israel, because the fact that we're in Eretz Israel has affected all of Jewry. And just like we see now that every Jew is affected in what's happening in this country, and we all feel it. Wherever you are in the world, your eyes were on the screens on October 7th. Your eyes are on the screen with every hostage being released. We have now this collective experience, and it's all around this country. We're all connected to the land. So part of coming back to the land goes along with this revival of this kind of new agey experience, and also what we call the sort of feminine world of chaos, in which we should, and we feel that we should and can receive from everyone and learn from everyone, and everything is okay. And I lose myself in this world of imagination, a very superficial imagination, of trying to catch all the butterflies. But as the saying says, one bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. And the reason is that with that one bird you can fly, and you can go to levels and heights that you can't with even 1,000 birds in the bush that are beautiful to look at, but neither one of them will carry you to distant and new lands. So just like marrying one person, you really start living life. If you focus on one direction, one rabbi, you're able to experience the depth of Judaism, the depth of Torah, in a way that you cannot without the sense of committing. And you should know that there is going to be, that's the one term I didn't address yet, there is going to be a sweetening to your open days, your searching days, your days of feeling very open to all directions and all winds and all different spiritual styles. You left it, you narrowed it, you focused, you became specific, and maybe even you disappointed some people who liked you, that you were so broad and open and you were undecided, and you were one day you were this and the other day you were that, and people, I'd like you like that the way you were before. I don't like you so much that you're going this one direction as if it's the whole truth. But it's going to be sweetened. You're going to regain your openness, your broadness, by this profound stage of inter-inclusion, of finding shades and aspects and sparks of all the Torot integrated into the one path that you went deep into. So this is our Yud Aleph Shvat class. Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you want more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.